While the Conservatives are happy to pick holes in Labour's manifesto tomorrow, it'll be their turn to face political, public and media scrutiny as they reveal their plans for the next 5 years should they win.
A new poll suggests the Tories' lead over Labour has narrowed by 3%. They are still comfortably ahead, but the Chancellor Philip Hammond joins us now from Westminster. Very good morning to you. A little bit worried about the fact that your lead is slipping?
Well, we don't take too much notice of the polls. As the Prime Minister said many times, we've seen over the last couple of years how polls can get it very, very wrong. So we're just focused on getting across to the British people the message about the choice that they face on June the 8th, the question of leadership between Theresa May and Jeremy Corbyn, and the disaster that a coalition led by Jeremy Corbyn would represent for Britain and Britain's economy. OK, well, one of the choices people might see is a huge number of pledges on public spending from your rivals.
Labour's promising 10,000 more police officers. Labour's promising an extra £37 billion on the NHS in England over the next 5 years. The Lib Dems are going to put billions into the NHS. Both are suggesting that a little bit more is put onto income tax in order to fund critically affected services. Education and the NHS currently, according to some people, in crisis, compared to the choice, some would say, of continued austerity under the Conservative government, with a pay cap for public sector workers, people using food banks. That's a critical choice, isn't it?
Well, you'll see very soon what we have to say in our manifesto. What we've got in front of us today is Labour's manifesto published yesterday, and the simple fact is Labour's figures don't add up. The pledges that you've just reeled off are literally not worth the paper they are written on. £105 billion worth of spending commitments, allegedly fully paid for by just £47 billion worth of tax increases.
Well, that's because they say that the renationalising of those industries is going to be cost neutral, and that they have cost to the penny all of the actual spending pledges. And all of that money that they are pledging to put into the NHS, into our police service and into education, those policies are polling extremely well. Frankly, I mean, you're the Chancellor. Do you not agree that more money needs to go into the NHS, which has just abandoned one of its waiting time pledges, into education? Do you think more money should go into those?
Well, you'll see when we publish our manifesto what we are saying about these issues, but it's simply not true to say that Labour's numbers add up. They have a £58 billion black hole in the numbers they published yesterday, £105 billion worth of spending commitments, £47 billion worth of tax raising, and that's even assuming that the tax raising that they set out actually delivers the amounts they are claiming. The IFS have already cast very strong doubt over whether, for example, their corporation tax increases, their higher rate income tax increases would raise anything like the amounts that they're claiming.
And inevitably, you're going to pick holes in the Labour manifesto, but you're the party of government at the moment. And lots of people are saying your figures don't add up. The claim of £10 billion going into the NHS, whereas the Health Select Committee say there's only £4.5 billion going into the NHS, saying that the NHS faces a funding gap of £30 billion by the end of the decade, saying that the schools budget, there is a reduction in real terms spending per pupil. There are head teachers scratching their heads wondering how they're going to run their classes, who they're going to sack. There are nurses going to food banks.
Well, on the NHS, the simple facts are, and you can look at the numbers, the simple facts are that by the end of the decade, we will be spending £10 billion a year more in real terms on the NHS than we were doing in 2014. Those are the facts. But are there challenges in all our public services? Of course there are. But the only way we can rise to those challenges, the only way we can deal with the challenges of an ageing society sustainably over the long term is to have a strong and robust economy and to get a good Brexit deal for Britain. And the way we can do that is by electing Theresa May as our leader to negotiate the best possible deal for Britain in our exit negotiations with the EU.
OK, Mr Hammond, let me just segue to Tim Farron for a moment, who's back in headlines you won't want to see today about his personal beliefs as a Christian. He gave an interview in 2007 in which he said abortion is wrong at any time. Are you a Christian?
Nominally. I'm not a practicing Christian in the way that Tim Farron is.
What are you, a non-practicing one?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, it means I adhere to the values of the Christian faith, but I'm not somebody who goes to church every week or practices my religion in that kind of way.
Do you think there's a relevance to people's personal religious beliefs to their capacity to run the country, to be senior politicians?
Well, I think people's faith and people's beliefs and value sets is an important part of what they are, and I think it's important that we understand what drives people and what motivates them.